and welcome to a brand new video. As you saw by the title, and you probably click very fast because it's one of the most requested videos along with Lisa and well, many others. But these two, oh my god, you don't stop requesting them all day long. We're going to talk about the case I promised, this horrifying, disgusting, mysterious, and many more things, the case of the Black Dahlia. But before we begin, don't forget to follow me on all my social media. You know I have a billion social media accounts. Subscribe to this channel and activate the notification bell so it lets you know when I upload a new video. Anyways, I know that you want to hear about this case right now, so let's start. Well, let's begin by talking about the woman who was the victim of all this and who is now known as the Black Dahlia. Her real name was Elizabeth Short. She was born in Boston on July 29, 1924 and died in Los Angeles on January 15, 1947. Which means that when she died, she was just 22 years old. Regarding to her life story, so we can understand her more, she was a girl who was born in a family along with 5 sisters. The father was the owner of a mini golf course, but given to the Great Depression in 1929, he went bankrupt. So, in his desperation, he staged a suicide. He parked his car next to a bridge, pretending he had jumped off that same bridge. While all his family was crying and hurting of his death, he decided to move to the state of California, leaving them in most absolutely poverty that you can even imagine. 10 years after all this, he showed up again at their house asking for forgiveness to please forgive them, saying he will never leave them again. And they were like, never again, except for Elizabeth. She forgave him because, I don't know, she felt like she had to. He lived in California in Los Angeles, and her dream was to become a model and a very well-renowned actress in Hollywood, so she decided to move in with her father. Once she got to Los Angeles, she saw the reality was different, that her father only wanted her as a maid. Then she got tired and said, "No more, I'm leaving this house." That's how she started a completely different life, and she took advantage of being pretty to get some money. Seducing men so they would buy her food, so they would pay for her rooms, and well, that's how she got to know many men throughout the years. Clearly, she, given her rush to become a Hollywood star, tried to go to well-known bars where maybe the stars went to, where she could maybe meet directors that say like, "Oh, you're really pretty, do you want to be part of this movie? Do you want to model for this magazine?" or many other things. She even offered herself to be the Hotel Cecil's face. But because she met so many people, because she went out with many people, she started going out with the wrong kind, with bad people, especially in the Hollywood atmosphere where not everybody wants the best for you. Obviously, because she was a really pretty girl, many men only want to have sex with her, but she never let them. Only a couple of men were her actual and serious boyfriends, and they have the opportunity. But she said no to the rest of them. Despite everything, she made them respect her. However, her life completely changed in 1947. That January 15 morning, a lady called Betty Betzinger was walking through Los Angeles with her daughter. They passed by a great pasture land, like some kind of undeveloped land, which was next to a construction zone called Lehman Park. There on the floor, she saw what it seems to be a mannequin. In that time, because of the crisis of the 29, many stores closed, so many people closed their shops and left all the mannequins and the trash everywhere. The girl, however, said like, "Oh, look mom, that's a mannequin all broken." And when she got closer, that was the worst moment of her life. The screams could be heard 50 blocks from there because no, it wasn't a mannequin, it was Elizabeth Short, whose throat had been cut and was lying there. The woman clearly ran away and went to the police, and this is when one of the most mysterious and unsolved cases of American history started. Well, I'm going to explain to you how they found this woman. You can see all the pictures you want on the internet, just you have to type Black Dahlia. But I'm obviously warning you because they're very explicit, so I'm not going to show them here. She had been slashed in 2 points from her waist. All of her internal organs had been removed, the bowels, the kidneys, the liver, everything. And she didn't have a single drop of blood. It was like a vampire had sucked her dry. Besides, she had one of the most awful and terrifying cuts that you can actually do to someone. It's called the Glasgow smile. It's the usual smile the Joker from Batman has that goes from ear to ear. It's awful because it resembles the clown's smiles. Jeff the Killer also had it. I mean, those are very creepy smiles. Her face had been completely slashed. And what's curious is that the body had been completely washed clean. It was perfectly clean. Even the hair had been cleaned before leaving her there. It's very weird because the cuts were very elegant, like they were done with a lot of precision. It was as if the person that killed her had a lot of knowledge of medical or surgical field. The oddest thing was the way in which they left her there. They left her in a supremely odd and strange position. The elbows were bent in a 90-degree angle, like so. She was like this. Her belly was cut open and they also cut off a thigh, which they introduced in her vagina. They fractured her legs with a bat, as well as her head. She was asphyxiated and had rough burns in her arms and legs, which meant she had been held prisoner in some place. When they got to the crime scene, it was very difficult for the police officers to identify her, given how beaten she was and how she had suffered. Besides, her hands were very wet, so her fingers had burned, making it impossible for them to take her fingerprints. When they had to recover the body and everything, they tried to discover her identity and they made it. Thanks to the fingerprints they got when she was dry, they identified her and came to the conclusion it was Elizabeth. She was 5'4", weighed 114 pounds, and had a very nice smile. According to the autopsy, many things were revealed about what she had gone through while they tortured her alive. They had burned her with cigarettes, they had beaten her, they had lacerated her, they had skinned her, and even say that forced to eat human feces because they found traces in her stomach. What actually killed her in that moment was a state of shock caused by concussions on the head and obviously by the blood loss given all the cuts and lacerations she had on her body. They discovered that for 72 hours, namely 3 days, she was tortured to death. From the day she disappeared, 3 days passed until she was found on that piece of land. Some very odd things happened. One of them was that when they found her, the woman's hair had been dyed to a reddish kind of color. Someone had cut, filled, and done her nails, and they even got rid of a tattoo she had. They cut it off. It was as if the killer wanted her to look prettier after her death. And it's here when many theories about this case appear, referring to who might be the culprit. This was obviously covered later by the press, and they even started calling her the Black Dahlia because she was a woman who always wore black, thinking that would make her look more elegant. Besides, her hair was also black. During that time came out a movie called The Blue Dahlia, which was also about a woman's murder, and that's why they call her the Black Dahlia. Also, they say she looked very alike to the movie's main character. After all this, the case was opened and it has obviously been very complicated. In that time, it was even more complicated to solve it because from the moment it happened, more than 400 men were deemed suspects given the lifestyle she had. You know that she started meeting a lot of people, a lot of men here and there, in these places and the others, so it was very difficult to find the person who could have done it. Word started spreading out about a man called Mark Hansen. It is said he was the last person who saw Elizabeth Short alive, and they even spoke on the phone on January 9. He was the owner of a dancing club which she visited very often. She was very good friend of the owners, who were Mark and his wife, but it was obviously proved that this man wasn't the culprit. Even though he tried to have sex with Elizabeth, he never got to, so he lost his interest and they discovered that he was innocent. One day, a newspaper from Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Examiner, got a call from the alleged killer, saying he was very upset because they weren't doing enough research or what was needed to catch him. You have to be very ballsy to call a newspaper and say, I kill her, but you won't find me. There, in the rush, say like, okay, well, if it's you, then tell us why and how. He replied, I'm going to send you proof, I'm going to sell you several things that were hers. He sent them Elizabeth's birth certificate, cards, clippings of newspapers covering all about her death, and an address book that had several names of people who were really close friends of hers. After having dismissed Mark Hansen and many other men, 3 were left off the list as possible killers. However, each one of them was interviewed and cleared from the case. It is said that the last person to have been with her was called Robert Red. He was a 25-year-old married salesman, and one day before her disappearance, he was driving her and he saw her. Him being a very typical man, stopped his car and told her like, hey baby, where can I take you? She told him she didn't have anywhere to go, so he took her to a motel that night, but they didn't do anything. He said she was never willing to do anything with him and that she just stood up there the whole night, for she didn't want to do anything and was feeling poorly. The next morning, she said she was going to the bus station to drop the suitcase and then to the Hotel Cecil to meet her sister, but that was obviously a lie. He took her to the station and then around 4 p.m. they got to the Hotel Cecil and dropped her there. And then he went home. For a long time, he was the main suspect, but the wife confirmed to everybody that she was with him the whole night, that it was truly impossible for him to have killed her without her noticing. Many years later, they even injected him with the truth serum, and indeed, he didn't say anything, he hadn't been culprit. After making several calls and more things, they even called the hotel, and one of the receptionists said that she left the hotel at 10 p.m. and never saw her again. Obviously, given the popularity of this case, many people stepped forward to say like, I killed her. I mean, they wanted their 5 minutes of fame, but in the end, they didn't succeed, they didn't get it right. Their stories didn't match, so they were simply dismissed. Even an agent who was in charge of the case said it hadn't been solved because of the amount of information and all the things the reporters were doing to try to find that information. There were so many things happening that they prevented the police from accessing that information faster and solving the case. What they did was hinder the investigation, many clues were lost, things were handled badly, and it was just never solved. Later, obviously her father was one of the suspects, but given her fight with her daughter, in her in 3 years, and say that he didn't even want to see her, he didn't even want to know anything about her, and he didn't even want to go to the morgue to recognize her. So the mother had to flew in from where she was to ID her. But that was not the worst thing. They tricked her, telling her that her daughter had won a beauty contest. When she arrived and saw that she had actually been a victim of a horrible crime, but they couldn't tell her suddenly, but I mean, poor mother. After many years of investigations, one of the most important theories started to appear, which was about a man called Steve Hodel. He said he knew who had murdered her and that he had all the clues to prove that, but that makes a lot of sense. This man, Steve Hodel, said his father was the one who killed Elizabeth. As I told you, when they found her, she had some very precise and odd cuts made from a person that had any knowledge about medicines, especially about surgery. And this man was a doctor. But how did he find out? Well, in 1999, he found an album in his house which was full of pictures of a woman with pale skin and black hair. He didn't know her, she wasn't his relative, she wasn't his sister, cousin, aunt, or anything, but he thought he really looked like the Black Dahlia. That was obviously a very renowned case, so he said like, this woman seems familiar. From there, he realized she was probably her and thought, that his father might be the killer. He said his father's name was George Hodel and he had lived in the same city as Elizabeth. Many people even say that they'd see him together around that time. They had some sort of affair, and it is even said that his office was just 2 blocks away from the Cecil Hotel, namely the place she left that night. Besides the position I showed you, the one in which they found her was very familiar to Steve. And why? Because his father was a fan of an artist called Man Ray. And he had a painting called The Minotaur, which oddly enough depicts the same position she was found in. By the time she died, Hodel's father had bought some cement bags to renovate a house, and some cement bags were also found in the crime scene. Moreover, one of the people who were near the crime scene when this happened said that around that time they had seen a car passing by, which was exactly like the car that man drove, which was a Ford sedan of 36. During those days, that man has stayed home alone because Steve, all of his siblings, and his mother had gone to visit family in another state right around those days. Also, there were some letters the killer had written, and he said the calligraphy was very similar to his father's. After that, he started talking with many detectives of that time to be able to collect information. And they found that one of the main detectives of the case told him that, indeed, his father had been a suspect for the crime. They had secretly wired this man's house to hear what he said, to maybe catch some things, and they found out he talked about clandestine abortions he did at his clinic, about him knowing he was already a suspect in the Black Dahlia case, and he also said that they were never going to catch him. In the end, this man was never caught because they say that if they caught him, they were going to start a political fight between the ideas of legal and illegal abortions. I didn't really understand this very well, but basically they didn't want to meddle with medicine problems, abortions, and all of that. In the end, this man remained free, went to the Philippines, and met there the last woman with whom he spent his last years of life. Very well, this was the Black Dahlia case. There are so many conspiracy theories circling around her death. So if you want me to film a video about just the conspiracy theories, let me know and I'll do it. But for now, this is more or less what happened and the suspects. I truly think that man could have been the killer. I mean, he had all the clues that pointed at him. But anyway, what do you think? If you want, you can look for more information on the internet. Remember that I urge you to be cautious because the images are very explicit. This is the video that you asked for so much, so if you like it, don't forget to leave the thumbs up. Don't forget to comment and leave suggestions about what other cases you like me to film and if you like me to do conspiracy theories for this case, so I can talk about more conspiracy theories that I have in my mind. As always, don't forget to follow me in all my social media. You know I have a billion social media accounts. And the most important things, don't forget to subscribe to this wonderful channel. It really helps me to keep making videos like this one, and don't forget to activate the notification bell so it lets you know when I upload a new video. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching me. Don't forget to follow your dreams, and I'll see you on the next video. I love you. Bye!